So I did get Tiny and Janut's lab results back. If you don't know, Tiny and Janut were my bottle baby calves that I had this year. Their moms are cows here on my husband and father-in-law's cattle farm, and both of them were twins. So in cattle, twins are not common like they are in sheep. Sheep do really well with twins. Cows most of the time do not. Typically they will reject the first one born simply because they go off and they have the second one and they forget they ever had the first one. On top of this, Tiny's mom was a heifer, meaning that she's never had a calf before, so this was her first time. They typically have a harder time with a lot of things their first time calving, such as just learning how to be a mom or having plenty of milk. Tiny was the firstborn, and her mom didn't take her. On that first day, Tiny came here to my sheep barn to live here. It was literally the best day. Bottle calves have a rough start. They do. Especially if they don't get that colostrum in the beginning, which Tiny didn't. She got colostrum replacer, but it's not the same, and they desperately need that. It was a beautiful 2 weeks. We have been keeping our eye on another set of twins out in the field, and so far the mom was doing semi-okay with them. You know, the longer you can leave them with the mom, the better, as long as they're getting enough. But Janut developed an abscess on her face. It was from being kicked. Her mom didn't keep up with her very well, so she was going around and stealing milk from the other mamas in the field. And mamas are protective of their milk because they know they need that for their baby. She sustained an injury to her face, and I brought her back here at 2 weeks old. I kept her in a pen for a week. She had surgery on her face. She was doing amazing. They were both doing amazing. The same day, oh gosh, I'm sorry. The same day that I let Janut out to be with Tiny, Tiny started running a fever. Pneumonia is super common in bottle calves because they just pick things up so easy. So that's what we were thinking. The vet had just checked Tiny out when she came and did Janut's surgery. She thought she had allergies. She had no fever that day, so we got her all the medicine she needed for allergies. Gave her antibiotics. Her fever went away. I'm a little fuzzy on the timeline, I really am. But maybe the next 2 weeks were kind of like a boomerang, with her feeling good and then going back to a fever and not feeling good and feeling good, just back and forth. So strange. 2 weeks ago, her fever got really high. We did medicine, we did ice packs, everything that me and the vet both knew to do, but she wasn't getting better, and we put her down. The vet came to see her 2 days before that, and luckily we had blood drawn, took her body for a necropsy afterwards. I went out to feed Janut right after we put Tiny down, and I saw all the same symptoms in her, just that quick. Janut only made it 3 days after Tiny, I think it was 3. So we took her body for a necropsy and sent it off for labs as well. Everything put together, this is what it appears happened. Tiny was so small and so immunocompromised from the beginning, much more than Janut. There's so many viruses and bacteria and parasites that live in the soil. They just do. You can't get rid of them. And one of those is called cryptosporidium, or crypto for short. It doesn't only attack cattle. It's zoonotic, meaning it can affect any animal or even humans. In fact, it is the most common cause of waterborne illness in humans. Typically in people, it's severe stomach cramping and diarrhea for around 2 weeks. Animals, it usually only affects the really young, like newborn, or immunocompromised. Tiny was both of those. Crypto, if you look it up, it's going to say it's a parasite, a single-celled organism, but it's a spore. So once the organism gets into the intestines, it splits off into 2 separate spores. One is a soft-sided spore, and that's the one basically infests the host. The second one is a really thick-walled, hard-shelled spore, and that is the oocyte that is released in the feces. That one, you can't kill it. You can't heat it up enough. You can't freeze it enough. You can't chlorinate it and kill it. With that being said, all the animals in the world who have ever had it and lived on all the soil in the world, it's everywhere. Tiny was just susceptible. Then you have another bacteria called clostridium, which most of y'all who have followed me are somewhat familiar with, because that's what Tinkles and Acorn both had as tiny lambs. Clostridium is typically something that when these young animals get it, you really don't even know until you find them not alive. Clostridium is also a bacteria that's found in the soil. You can't get rid of it, it's just there. Since it lives in the soil, any ruminant who grazes right there on the ground, they're gonna have it already living in their gut. It doesn't cause harm unless you get more of the Clostridium than you do the good bacteria. So once the crypto got into Tiny's system and overpowered everything, the Clostridium took over. All the while you have her dropping all these oocytes onto the ground. Quite a bit more than you would typically just find in the soil. That started the exact same chain of events in Janut. As far as all the other animals, I know a lot of you have asked about the sheep or Sassburger, tuna or brownie. These are all organisms that have been here the whole time. In Tiny's case, it would be like us having a severe dip in our immune system and all of a sudden we become really susceptible to them. Or in Janut's case, it would be like just being bamboozled with so many sick people who are highly contagious around you all at once. And it just overpowers what immune system you do have. We are cleaning out the entire barn. There have been some small studies done, even though cryptos can't destroy it in the soil. You can't. There are some small studies that show some success in killing it with hydrogen peroxide that is 6% or higher. I have a 55-gallon drum of 34% hydrogen peroxide coming to sanitize my room here, the floors, the gates, and the equipment in the barn. But crypto exists. It exists everywhere. It's in almost every environment. I'd like to disinfect as good as possible for my own heart. It was just the perfect storm.